Hello and welcome back. The phone lines are still hectic here in the studio in London and indeed at incident rooms up and down the country. Right now the police are checking out a number of names of individuals associated with several crimes, and we've got a name or a possible name in connection with a rape. We've got several names in connection with an armed robbery. We'll give you some details starting right now. Sue.
Well, first of all, the attack on a mother of two in her own home 7 weeks ago in Sheffield. We showed a man had called on several houses for sale in the Woodseats area, posing as a buyer.
I'm sorry to trouble you, love, but my wife can't make it.
Oh.
I've just rung her up at work and she can't get off till 2:30. Is it all right if we come back then?
Oh, that's okay.
Well, his victim was alone when she showed him round, and then he turned on her and sexually assaulted her. At the time of the attack, she was 7 months pregnant. Matt Brearley is in charge of the inquiry. You've been taking the calls, and there are 3 calls in particular that you would like to hear from again.
Yes, I'm very pleased with the response to the programme. We've had a lot of calls, and in particular, I would like Mr Watson to ring again. Mr Watson rang and wanted to give some information about the attack and found it too awkward to speak at that time. I would also like the girl who rang and named the attacker and gave us some details of a vehicle to ring again, and the woman who rang our office at Sheffield, but before she was able to give the information was cut off. Our Sheffield office would like her to ring again.
Right, and a quick look at the video fit of that man again, if you could describe him briefly for us.
Yes, he's about 38 years of age, 5'8", and chubby build. On the 27th of April, he did have scratches across the left side of his face, and we would like people to ring us if they know that man.
Also, we've had calls asking to see the 4 artists' impressions of the men who've been using similar techniques in Doncaster, Nottingham, Coventry and St Albans. So there they are. If you think you've seen any of those men, please do give us a ring.
Now that armed robbery on a security van at the Open University at Guildford in Surrey. It happened on the morning of April the 14th. 2 men were seen trespassing on the campus and were asked to leave. A few minutes later, they reappeared.
Right, don't move and I'll waste you! Get out there! You! Get that man down! Now! Stay!
They made off with £150,000 in a stolen red Renault Fuego, and Alan Radlett has been pursuing them ever since, and you've got some very encouraging calls, I know, Alan.
Yes, we've got over 100 calls, and at least a dozen people have phoned up and given names as suggestions to the video fits.
Any of those that you can pin any hopes on?
Well, it's very, very encouraging, the response. It's too early to say for certain, but there's a devil of a lot of work that we've got to do now to eliminate these people.
I gather one of the 2 of those, of course, might have come from villains themselves. And I gather you've just been on to the incident room at Guildford, and somebody's found that card, or at least this is a replica of a card that was missing.
Yes, one of these car park cards has been found in London SE21. It's too early to say whether it is the one that Mrs Payne lost, but it's certainly good news indeed.
Maybe we could just show this purse again. This purse was missing, was taken with the car. If anybody's found one of those anywhere, we'd very much like to hear. And those descriptions of the men again, somebody I think has given you a name of the man with the glasses, or at least some details.
Yes, we've had a number of calls with names, but particularly we're interested for a woman who has phoned up, and she particularly says that she knows this man, but it wasn't convenient for her to stay on the phone and talk. She has phoned up twice, but not given details so that we can contact her.
Well, let's hope she rings again. Alan Radlett, thanks very much indeed. Sue.
Well, next, the 3 men who posed as police officers and gained entry to a house in Clacton-on-Sea in Essex.
Joking. What's going on?
Oh! You bastard!
As you can see, they gagged and handcuffed the householders and made off with cash and antiques worth £30,000. And the officer in charge of the case and who's been taking many of your calls is Peter Went. What sort of response have you had?
And we've had a very good response. Somebody wants to see the watch again because they think they may have been offered the watch.
We can show that watch. It's a Rolex watch and quite distinctive.
That's correct, yes.
And there's a serial number which identifies it completely, so that's inside the back of the watch.
We've had calls suggesting a possible identity of the offenders, which we'll obviously follow up. But I would again make one other appeal in relation to man number 2. Somebody somewhere who's watching this programme must know the man with that scar.
Right. He will have had quite a nasty scar on his face. Thank you very much.
Now to Incident Desk. We've had nearly 200 calls so far on these items. David Hatcher, what have you got?
Well, first of all, Nick, the Hume Hall burglary on the 1st of April, where £200,000 worth of jewellery was taken, had 2 possible suggestions of where that jewellery might have been on auction today. And also, we showed you some boots in connection with that particular job. Well, we've had calls suggesting that those burn marks on the soles of that boot could be identified as belonging to a welder. Now, we also showed you some clothing that was found by the road near Hume Hall after the robbery.
This is in Berwickshire.
That's right. And that clothing and those boots, if they tie together and do belong to a welder, may be a better aid to witnesses to identify where it's come from. So if you can tie those two things together, please give us a call. There's also a suggestion that those boots could be German.
Now, I know we've had a lot of people thinking they recognised that voice involved with the robbery in Holland Park, Holland Villas it's called, isn't it? Holland Villas Road in West London.
That's right, yes. £330,000 worth of Marquise diamond was taken in a ring. We've had a request for the tape. Let's listen to the tape again and see if you can recognise it this time.
I'd like to report robbery number 16, 16, Holland Villas in Holland Park. I say one more time for you. I'd like to report robbery 16, Holland Villas, okay?
Very quickly, anything else?
Well, 4 people say they think they know who the voice is, but we'll wait and see. Merseyside off-licence robberies, we've had 7 calls with possible names and a request to see the baton waver involved in that video call that we'd showed you, in the hope that they may be able to confirm the identity of that person and call back.
David?
If you think you know who they are, call us.
Thank you very much.
Helen, any news on the series of rapes of elderly women in Kent and Hertfordshire? There was a gold chain and a stolen watch.
Yes, many people have called in about that jewellery. One viewer in particular wants to see that bracelet watch taken from the attack in Kent. That watch is about 60 years old and it's got rather a worn, expanding bracelet to it. He believes he's seen it in Bedfordshire.
Right, that could be useful then. What about 19-year-old Stephen Burke, who was so badly injured in a fight at Presthaven Sands in North Wales?
A man has called in. He said he witnessed the attack and he also spoke to the offenders. That's very encouraging information.
Right. And what about the hippo heist? There are 4 missing hippos on the loose somewhere in the country. Any news on those?
Well, one has been seen heading north up the M1. He was in a light-coloured, possibly a BMW-type car.
Not driving it, I hope.
No. He was sitting in the back, but he didn't quite get in because his head had to poke out through the sunroof. But we hope to pick up the trail.
Right. And in video call, you needed to trace Malcolm Fox in connection with raids in the West Country. Any news on him?
Well, we've had a very sharp-eyed viewer believes that these robberies are connected with a robbery happening in Sussex. It was reported in their local paper. But the officers in the case do believe that Fox is in the West Country. Right. And if anyone has seen him, whether he's been staying in guest houses or travelling around, please call us.
Right, thank you. And that's it for this month. Thank you very much for calling if you did, and our apologies if you found the lines engaged. The number here at the studio will be staying open until midnight, and that is, of course, 01811 8055. Or you can take a note of local numbers. We'll be showing you on the screen in a moment.
Or, of course, just ring your local police. Whatever you do, if you think you can help, please don't keep it to yourself. We'll be back, as always, in a month from now, and meantime, you might be relieved to know that in the rare sort of crimes that we cover, those that involve violence against the person, 3/4 are cleared up by the police. In fact, you're safer in Britain than in most countries in Europe or anywhere else in the world, come to that, so don't have nightmares, do sleep well. Good night.
Good night.